Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. And everyone, hey, welcome into today's program. So today on the show, some craziness has happened. There was a big rally in Washington, D.C., and I mentioned that purely because it's going to come up in a number of our articles because, there's a backlash for this. There's a response to this when it comes to social media and tech companies. And, we've talked about the Section 230. We've talked about net neutrality. We've talked about a lot of these other topics here on the show, and it would seem almost irresponsible to not talk about the current mood towards, the president in light of these, in light of the rallies over in DC and more. So everyone, that's going to come up, just fair warning, but there's going to be other computer and technology news as well. And ladies and gentlemen, of course, all next week and of course in the following weeks, even after that, we're going to be focused on our CES 2021 coverage. There's already stories out, everyone trying to get ahead of the press and the stories, but we're going to reserve it and try to get these companies on the program here with us. There's going to be a lot of articles. There's already a couple of articles, one about Catalyst Case. You can check that out over at computeramerica.com. I believe there's also one for MSI, and the fact that they announced a number of refreshes to their desktop PCs. All of it, really, they've beefed it up with the 3090, 3080, 3070 graphics cards. So, we're going to have little announcements like that, kind of what these companies are doing out there at CES. But then we always encourage them to come on the program and talk to us directly to, kind of get your questions, our questions, and just get the best picture that we can about these companies. So, next week, a lot of CES 2021. We're gonna do our best to stay on top of it, and there's a lot of media stuff going on behind the scenes here. So don't worry, we're trying to handle it. So everyone, with that being said, we have a lot of stories, and of course, should just mention computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including those articles I was just talking about, podcasts, the show, the video archive, the audio archive, all that and more. If you can't catch us live on IRN, then hey, you can of course catch us on our podcast wherever podcasts are heard. Just search Computer America, and hey, we should pop right up. Just that simple. So everyone, until I think we'll go ahead and just get into it and start talking about these. Everyone, computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America. Let's get this started. Okay, so I think trying to tackle this entire social media thing is going to be the best way to start out the show. And let me gather all of my different resources here that I have. Here we go. So, let's see. We're starting with, obviously, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch. Really 4 of the largest tech companies out there, and when you talk about market capitalization, probably the bulk of what it is to be social media. We have social media, let's see, and here's the Facebook one. The market share of, kind of social media between Facebook, Twitter, and Amazon, and then, of course, YouTube with Google, that makes up not just some of the biggest tech companies in the world, but, of course, the largest social media sites. All of them took very swift action for the video that came out with Trump, and then of course some of the language that Trump had used with his tweets and some of his other statements on social media. And many people attribute Trump's words to the violence that happened in Washington, D.C. And in light of that, I mean, this is the biggest turnaround, I think, from Facebook. We'll start with Facebook in particular, because it's not just Facebook, but Facebook and Instagram as well. Seeing as now they are the same company, Mark Zuckerberg announces Trump ban from Facebook and Instagram for at least the next 2 weeks. This was an update. I'm sure that if a lot of you had heard of this story just even like an hour ago, then you would know it was indefinitely. And now we have 2 weeks. And of course, what happens in 2 weeks? Well, 2 weeks is when President Donald Trump no longer becomes president of the United States. So that 2 week ban, he is going to afterwards be a private citizen. And the thing about that is that a lot of the leniency and leeway that social media sites had given him, things that would have gotten ordinary people banned, and believe me, I've heard from a lot of you, it did get a lot of you banned off of Twitter and Facebook and social media, to say the things that the president did and the way he said it. And a lot of the social media sites' efforts to crack down on certain types of speech and, other articles and things like that. Here's what, that whole thing, and here's what I'm kind of alluding to. In the middle of Trump's presidency, Mark Zuckerberg went to Capitol Hill to testify about Facebook's freedom of expression, the suppression of conservative viewpoints on the social media platform, the perceived censoring and banning of, along party lines, conservative people and viewpoints. And, kind of thinking, why is social media such a liberal, playground, whereas it's almost dangerous to be a conservative on there? We have covered articles in the past that have, kind of shown to the contrary, even with Mark Zuckerberg saying that they had suppressed liberal websites and news publications just so that it wouldn't be perceived that, due to their own AI and due to their own automated systems that were punishing conservative publications and websites on their platform. So they actually went above and beyond their own systems to make sure that Republicans were not punished more harshly, and went a little bit too far the other way. What I'm saying is Facebook was very welcoming to this presidency and to his viewpoints and things like that, and going it so far as to say that they will not censor or ban things. They will take a very light approach. Fake news has been a topic in conversation for years now, and Facebook essentially said, fake news is not the job of Facebook. Fake news is the job of the reader to discern information and decide for themselves if this is from a trusted source, if this is something that they believe in. They saw it as, this is not our responsibility. We're going to take a very, as they saw it, a pro-freedom of speech choice, and they're not going to get into it. So it was surprising to me, at least, that Facebook was one of the first ones to act. And again, what was at one point an indefinite ban, turning into at least a 2-week ban. And there you go. So the company blocked his accounts temporarily on Wednesday following Trump's posting on content that incited his followers to violence. But now Zuckerberg says that the ban is extended indefinitely, extending at least until Biden takes over as president. So both Facebook and Instagram removed Trump's video post yesterday, in which the president called for rioters who laid siege to the Capitol building on Washington to go home, but it also said, "We love you," to the same violent protesters. And here the article calls them terrorists. They follow that action with a 24-hour account lock, preventing Trump from posting his Facebook and Instagram accounts during that period. Zuckerberg acknowledges that Trump content has in the past been labeled or removed when when found to violate its policies, but that he had been allowed up until now to use our platform consistent with our rules. He says that has now changed due to the use of our platform to incite violent insurrection against democratically elected government. So, I think even that's taking kind of hand waving by Mark Zuckerberg. He definitely gave, and not just him, but Twitter and YouTube gave the president of the United States more leniency than they have shown to other people of his same ideology. Simply because he's the president of the United States, and let's face it, there is a very tricky legal system in place about being able to block the president of the United States. There are, kind of tweets out there that Trump has published his actions on Twitter before he published on any kind of press release from the White House or in any other way. He actually governed from these social media platforms. And you can't just silence that, you can't just delete that, because that is a message from the president, and it needs to be archived. It needs to be preserved for posterity's sake. And we're seeing that now quickly, even before he's done being president. They're starting to lock down his accounts. I'm trying to think of some of the other platforms and some of the other people that they had done this to, famously, where you had Alex Jones, I think, would be a good example of this. There are others, including, I'm saying Zach Galifianakis, but that is actually one of my favorite actors. That's not, I think it's like Stephanopoulos or something like that. There was another gentleman out there who got deplatformed, and this idea of deplatforming someone to ban them from sites, and once the ball gets rolling, as you saw with the likes of Alex Jones, the ball is very hard to stop. Payment platforms refuse to take donations and payments for this individual or for this business. Web hosting services start to take down their websites and refuse to do business with them, and will delete if they find that that is being circumvented in any way. You get, of course, social media blocking and deleting accounts and making sure that they don't go on the platform. Being deplatformed is a very real thing, and regardless on whether or not you think that it should be up to Amazon, Google, Facebook, Twitter, these four large tech companies to be able to do that to an individual, they're doing it. They're definitely doing it, and it's time to see if it's something. And again, Trump has been given so much leniency. It's time to see if that was bowing in deference to the office of the presidency, or if that's because Trump was actually doing things, that they found, as Zuckerberg just put it here, quote, consistent with our own rules. And I really don't think that a lot of what he posted was. Now, there's a lot of careful, heavily PR language doing heavy lifting here. Zuck is careful to say that use until now has lined up with the platform's rules, as I just said, and not instead been an exception to them. And he's also careful not to say Trump has directly incited violence in leaving or acting out of that particular sentence. Still, this is the strongest action by far from the platform to date by Trump, towards Trump. And so Facebook's decision to suspend the president account, even temporarily, is a shocking reversal from the long-standing attitude towards the leader. As we mentioned, Facebook has been very, very ready to work with the president, and I think Mark Zuckerberg has seen that as kind of like the lesser of two evils. Either they have to actually get certain fringe elements on their platform under control and take responsibility for what they post, or they can take the easier route and say, you know what, we're Facebook. It's, it's not really up to us what our users think or say or spread. And we're just going to facilitate any kind of speech that happens to be on our platform. They try to have their cake and eat it too. So historically, Facebook has been very permissive, as we just said. Most famously was when it did nothing to the president's account after he called for violence against racial protesters, saying that when the looting starts, the shooting starts, obviously, which is echoing of the Miami sheriff back in the 1960s. So throughout his administration, Facebook has gone out of its way to accommodate Trump. 2019, facing pressure to take a more principled stance, they struck a defiant pose in a grand speech in Georgetown, doubling down with the idea that Facebook has no responsibility to remove dangerous political content, saying that we can either stand for free expression or we can decide the cost is simply too great. We must continue to stand for free expression. So the article goes on to have the full post from Zuckerberg here and why they're doing this whole thing. It's and of course the leader from Instagram also said that for the next 2 weeks the president cannot use his Instagram account. Meanwhile, Twitter on Thursday, and this is another one of the articles and kind of what rolls into this whole thing, Twitter on Thursday revealed that Trump has complied with its requirement to delete the 3 offending tweets before reinstating access to his locked account on that platform, meaning that Trump will regain access 12 hours from the time of the deletion or later on Thursday. And I'm kind of curious. Let's see. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. Is he back in his account as we speak? Let's see. Here is his account, and no, looks like he has not tweeted since yesterday. So there you go. Okay, so that article rolls into the next one, which is this one, and this one from TechCrunch as well. Twitch, of all places. Twitch, hey, broadcasting live on Twitch ourselves, so we know this. Twitch disables Trump channel until the end of his term to minimize harm during the transition. So I guess with now Congress, finally saying that, well, the next president of the United States is going to be Joe Biden, they now don't really have to worry about censoring the president's speech because, he's not going to be president for long. Following a slate of temporary and permanent bans from a number of top online platforms, popular video streaming service Twitch today confirmed that it disabled the President of the United States account. A spokesperson told TechCrunch, quote, "In light of yesterday's shocking attack on the Capitol, we have disabled the Twitch account. Given the current extraordinary circumstances and the president's incendiary rhetoric, we believe this is a necessary step to protect the community and prevent Twitch from being used to further incite violence." Again, rolling into this idea that you can be deplatformed and it can happen very, very quickly, as we're seeing here. Trump's suspension is indefinite at this time, and Twitch also temporarily suspended the president's channel in June. At the time, they said that hateful conduct is not allowed on Twitch in line with their policies. The Trump's channel has been issued a temporary suspension. And by the way, this is a little bit more esoteric, a little bit more directly at the Twitch audience, but the PogChamp emotes, if you know the one, has been banned as well because the person who it depicted was actually asking or encouraging even more violence within that protest that happened there on Wednesday. So, you can see how that happened there. So, with that being said, PogChamp is disabled. The president's Twitch channel is disabled. And, of course, we have more another article here from YouTube and of course from Twitter, but Twitch's actions follow similar measures taken by Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat. I did not even know about Snapchat. Facebook also took the step to, as we just mentioned, ban him indefinitely, at least until January 20th. So, the social platform took action against the after he incited supporters in a riot on Capitol at the Capitol. And of course, Trump encouraged a crowd to march toward Congress after a rally on Wednesday in which the president again pushed the false claim of a stolen election. So, yeah, and we're not going to get into what happened at the Capitol. The loss of life is never something that you want to celebrate, but yeah, there was obviously violence at the Capitol. And then, of course, to push even further into this, the YouTube channel. YouTube says it will punish Trump and other channels that continue to spread election lies. Channels will receive an automatic strike on top of videos being removed. So YouTube will temporarily restrict channels that post videos containing widespread misinformation about 2020 election results, including the channel of President Donald Trump. This is even a step further because, like I said, they being Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, they have taken action against people who have said the exact same things that President Donald Trump has said in the past. They were not afforded the protections of the office of the White House, and it's quickly looking like the ban was not for Trump the person, the protections were not for Trump the person. The protections were for the president of the United States. So, now, with that being said, in December, YouTube issued issued new policy prohibiting any content designed to spread misinformation about the outcome of the 2020 election. Since then, the company has removed thousands of videos, according to a company spokesperson. Now, prior to yesterday's events, a grace period was in place allowing YouTube to remove videos without applying strikes to channels. This often happens when YouTube institutes new policies and is designed as an effort to be fair to creators while they adjust to the new rules. The grace period was set to expire January 21st, but obviously they decided to step up that date for Trump in particular and a lot of other people. Due to recent events, as they called them, extraordinary events that transpired yesterday. Now, this means that channels spreading misinformation about the election results will see strikes applied to their channels. For example, things like One American News Network, for example, who has pushed some of the same rhetoric that Trump has, could receive a strike on top of having videos deleted if it were to continue to uploading similar statements. Over the last 24 hours, several companies have taken stricter stances against the president's content. Obviously, as we mentioned, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. Ladies and gentlemen, it's starting to look a lot like social media in general is going to completely delete Trump from their platforms as quickly as they can. And yeah, it's going to be very shocking to be just inundated with Trump information, and then unless you travel to a service like Parler or one of these off-brand social media sites, unless you travel there, it's going to be hard to get, for him to get his information out, and he's going to have to make news in other forms. Now, yeah, I don't know what else there is to say about that. Social media and tech and that whole thing. I mean, they've already seen this administration hostile to them over Section 230. Section 230, which, ironically, if they got rid of Section 230, they would have been forced to ban Trump because, inciting violence and the statements by Trump to incite violence at the Capitol, they would have had to ban Trump because under Section 230, Facebook's not responsible for the content its users post. And as a user of these platforms, without 230, they'd have to take action against that. So it's almost like they're taking extreme exception to Section 230, but at the same time, that was the thing that was allowing him to, kind of push his message so much. So I think we're going to wrap that whole thing up there. Just know that social media is going to look very different in a bit, and it's going to be for better or worse, for thinking about other viewpoints and the echo chamber that can exist in platforms currently. In 2 weeks, things are going to look very different on social media. And it's, we're going to keep an eye on it. But here we go. And let's go ahead and continue on with that with something a little bit funny, I guess. So if you watch any of the live streams there, you may have seen one infamous person there wearing raccoon tails and bison horns. That gentleman, if you didn't know, his name's up here on the screen, Jake and Jelly. Yeah, well, we know his name. We know his face. He had thousands of pictures taken of him. And check this one out. This one from Vice, saying that police need help identifying famous QAnon guy named Jake and Jelly from Arizona. There you go. Even the DC police are really inundated with what it is that they're, what's happening. So obviously related to yesterday's events, DC police said that they would give you $1,000 for information about this very famous person who has been identified dozens of times. Saying that police are desperately seeking a man by the name of Jake and Jelly, a QAnon celebrity who has a Wikipedia page and has been the subject of dozens of local, national, and international news articles in the last 24 hours. And obviously over the last several months that have named him and given him numerous biographical details about him. So they mentioned that, of course, he was the one up at the dais who had his fur hat, his bull horns, and pictures taken. Has given interviews with local, national, international media. The Arizona Republic identified him like this, saying, quote, among the supporters for President Donald Trump who mobbed their way into the U.S. Capitol on Thursday, one, unmistakable in his fur, horned hat, and painted face, was Jake and Jelly, a QAnon supporter who had been a fixture of the Arizona right-wing political rallies over the past year. Even with a simple Google search, pops up 147,000 results for this gentleman. Many of them are his name and, articles about him. It's weird because the DC police cannot identify him. Nonetheless, Washington D.C. Metro Police are offering up to $1,000 to anyone enterprising enough to identify this mysterious person, according to a wanted poster it put out on Thursday. Saying, quote, anyone who can identify these individuals or who has knowledge of this incident should take no action but to call police, and they give the number, or text your tip to the department text tip line, saying that the Metropolitan Police Department offers a reward up to $1,000 for anyone who can provide information that leads to the arrest or indictment of the person or persons for a crime committed in the District of Columbia. Sounds like a free $1,000. Sounds like it. But yeah, that was pretty strange that they weren't able to kind of do the whole thing. So real quick, let me see if there's anything else that we need to say about this. Hopefully not, if you're asking me. So, I think we're okay. We're good and we're kind of good. This next one is about facial recognition. I've heard some stories about politicians claiming this kind of thing, and I'm not sure how well this works, but we can talk about it real quick. This is coming to us from BBC Tech, saying that a Japanese company, NEC, which develops facial recognition systems, has launched one that can identify people even when they are wearing masks. And I've heard reports that, this was happening in DC yesterday. I really don't think this is possible. Because, ladies and gentlemen, let's face it, facial recognition didn't work too well even without masks, and now they're saying they can. So, some of its claims, it hones in on one part of the face that are not covered up, such as the eyes, to verify their identity. Verification takes less than 1 second with an accuracy rate of more than 99.9%, as the company claims. By the way, the numbers are closer to being 99.9% wrong than they are 99.9% correct. Like even some of the best facial recognition technology out there in the market today, you're still looking at like a 97% false positive rate. These things are wrong a vast majority of the time. So I don't know what it is that they're doing over there, but man, good for them. So they mentioned that the Met Police uses NEC's NeoFace live facial recognition to compare faces in a crowd to those on a watch list, and they're trialing the system for automated payments at a shop in Tokyo headquarters. They even have like a handy little diagram here, which essentially says it maps your face, scans faces, maps those faces, compares the maps, and then it will identify the people. Seems super easy, but when you consider facial hair, eyes, face coverings, sunglasses, so many other things that, when someone's face is digitized, even 2 scans, I feel like in the same setting, are not going to give you the same the same lighting conditions, the same person twice in a row. Maybe something's turned a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, a little bit down, a little bit up, eyes open a little bit more than they would be, facial expression. Even the same person scanned almost immediately would probably not return the same results or, for the mapping information. It's hard to imagine that this is going to work. So before the coronavirus pandemic, facial recognition algorithms failed to identify 20 to 50% of images of people wearing face masks, according to reporting by the Standards and Technology. By the end of 2020, it reported a vast improvement. I will admit, if cameras need data to train their AI to be able to identify people, there has probably not been as many stories. There have probably not been as many pictures with people wearing their mask as there have been in the past, year. And so these algorithms have undoubtedly gotten a lot more training on people wearing masks than they ever would have before. Does that mean that they're good and that this actually works like this? I highly, highly, highly doubt it. So, yeah, NEC, this seems so not possible. So, any stories that you hear to the contrary, I would love to see some sourcing for that other than the company that is advertising and trying to push its product for sale. Okay, so there's that story. Now, moving on from all of that mess, deep breath, moving on, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about someone having a really good day. Why not? Elon Musk, the man with a plan, and the guy who, let's face it, he's the richest person in the world now. His net worth is now more than $185 billion. After Tesla shares skyrocketed. And boy, howdy did they ever. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be honest with you. I did not know that Jeff Bezos was worth $184 billion with a B. But here we are. Jeff Bezos is worth a mere $184 billion with now Elon Musk worth $185 billion. Remember when $1 billion was a lot to separate these individuals at the top of the list? And now it's just insane. Like there was a day when, Bill Gates had like $100 billion, like 90 billion or 70 billion, whatever it was. And he was by and far out and ahead of every other billionaire in the world. And now we have multiple billionaires that are duking it out at the top. There's something very, very wrong. It's not, it's not for me to say how this whole thing shakes out, but I know that if they tried to liquidate that into cash, they would never be able to do that because a lot of it's tied up into their companies and their market valuation. And trust me, if Elon Musk said tomorrow, I'm selling every one of my shares and I'm liquidating the company, his net worth would plummet down to a fraction of what it is. But still, that is just ridiculous that one person can claim ownership of $185 or even $184 billion worth of assets. It's crazy. By the way, around a year ago, Musk's net worth was around $27 billion, which wasn't enough to even rank him in the top 50 at the time. There's a lot more billionaires out there than I thought there were, although I really don't keep up to date with that. Now, the Tesla share price has skyrocketed more than 9-fold since then, and by around noon Eastern on Thursday, it had risen another $45, about 6% from the previous day. Amazon's market capitalization of $1.6 trillion is far higher than Tesla's cap of $760 billion. However, its share price has been fairly stagnant in recent months. There you go. So, why Elon Musk was able to do this was because Elon Musk made his payout. Elon Musk made his payout performance based. Depending on how well the stock did, depending on other metrics within the company, Elon Musk was able to earn his payouts. And it was like when the Tesla stock hit this amount, it paid out so many tens of thousands of shares to Elon Musk, and when he hit this amount, it paid out that much. Essentially, Elon Musk at the beginning of all of this, even just a couple of years ago, at the beginning of all this, said even in its darkest days, I won't take my cut. I won't take my cut of the company until the company is well enough to stand on its own. And then I'll take a very big share, which is, kind of the opposite. If you're a billionaire already, you're putting in billions of dollars of your own money to, kind of start Tesla. I think a lot of people out there would have said, well, I own a flat, 20%. I own whatever I put in. That's it. No, Elon Musk said, I will run this company, and my reward for delaying my payment, essentially loaning his capital to his own company, is that if I do really, really, really well, I will be rewarded handsomely for doing really, really, really well. And what we saw was a speed run. We saw Elon Musk hit every metric that you could possibly hit. Market capitalization, share price. He hit them all. And now he is sitting oh so pretty with $185 billion. That number will surely fluctuate up and down. Tesla is as Tesla does. But for now, he's having a really good day. And almost $200 billion to one person. It's pretty insane. Fairly insane. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and continue on. And of course, if you're just tuning in, everyone, first part, we're doing computer and technology news this entire day. And of course, if you're listening to us live on IRN, thank you so much. And if you miss it, then you can, of course, check out the podcast over at computeramerica.com or wherever podcasts are heard. Just search Computer America. Now, I think that our next topic we can talk about, we have some new products that are obviously coming out of CES, and we're going to try to hold on to those as much as we can, but some of them are just so cool, I can't help it. Let's talk about Working from home. That's something that a lot of people were told, no, there's no need for you to do that. You can't do that, so on and so forth. Let's face it. Due to the pandemic, a lot of people that were told, no, you can't work from home, are now being told, hey, you can only work from home for the foreseeable future. And now we have this article out today from USA Today saying that nearly 30% of working professionals would quit if they had to return to office after pandemic. People are getting comfortable. People are seeing that, hey, maybe I really can do my job. I can be productive, and I don't have to go into a central location to do it. And this is really what I love in something that we saw here with the radio program. Back in the day, you had to go into a radio station, you had to go down to WJNO, and you had to, reserve time in a booth. And hey, you had to do it that way. Nowadays, the technology has gotten so advanced that you can have a crystal clear connection in one's home and be able to do everything that used to take a lot of effort and a lot of time and really a lot of technology. And it's just gotten simpler and easier and better. The average person is starting to realize that they, before they had to do this. Now, not so much. So many companies plan to ask their employees to return to the office once a COVID-19 vaccine is widely available later this year. 29% of working professionals say that they would quit if their job couldn't continue working remotely, according to an online survey of 1,000 professionals. 42% of U.S. workers have been working full-time at home during the pandemic. That's according to a Stanford University study. Those teleworking are generally white-collared office workers who can perform their jobs with a phone or computer. Obviously, if your job is to manufacture widgets and you are the widget lever pulling person, can't exactly do that, but white-collar jobs, seems like it. The survey underscores that at least some businesses and their workers may be on a collision course as life gradually returns to normal and employees start requiring staffers to come back to the mothership. I will say, though, there will be a new normal. I know that phrase gets thrown out a lot. What a new normal will look like, in my mind, a lot of these workers are not coming back to the office. A lot of tech companies have already said, our workers are working from home indefinitely. The ability to not have to pay for office space is something that they definitely enjoy. And if the work is conducive to it, then why would you? The new normal is going to be much more, personally, I hope that masks stay around for a long time. Whenever it's flu season, I hope to see a lot more people wearing masks. And especially in places like restaurants or other high contact businesses, I hope that the sanitation process stays about the same. Fun fact, we've had one of the lightest flu seasons on record because of all the protections that we've taken. There's some good things that can come out of this pandemic, and there are some good lessons that we can take about how to keep ourselves safe and not sick. The new normal is going to be a lot more working from home. The new normal is going to be things like streaming videos to your home instead of going to a movie theater. Same day releases, streaming that is going to happen simultaneously with movie theaters. Things like if businesses didn't have if they didn't have an app, if they didn't have a way to deliver to people's homes, if they didn't have curbside delivery or no contact delivery, man, they all had to adapt very quickly. And I highly doubt that those, at some level, they are definitely convenient. And at other levels, they are, downright just safer. Those are going to stick around. So I doubt that there's going to be a return to normal, as this article kind of implies. The new normal, I believe, is going to look, it's going to look like a halfway between what it was in 2019 and what it was for the majority of 2020. There's going to be a halfway. So with that being said, they have another quote here saying that employees are now expect to be able to work flexibly. They feel they should be able to decide when and where they work. And if they are not given that choice, some will look for other employers that do offer that. Flexibility over where they work will be viewed much the way a 401k is viewed, as a basic component of the employment deal. And professionals in some industries are less adamant about continuing work from home. Just 7% of retail, wholesale, and distribution centers employees would switch jobs if they couldn't keep telecommunicating. But 35% of IT professionals would switch indeed. So, yeah, there are certainly advantages. There are certainly disadvantages. And from a corporate standpoint, I mean, I think having people in-house and being able to dictate when, where, and how hard they work and what distractions they face would certainly be ideal for them. But hey, is it ideal for the worker? And that's a change. That's, as a worker, I'm definitely for. So there you go. Okay. Story number, what are we up to? Was that like story number 7? And obviously we're putting a lot of the craziness behind us from our first few stories. Story number 7, story number 8 though. Story number 8, let's talk about something fun. And if you recall the original Xbox, personally, pretty revolutionary. I did, I had a Nintendo 64 growing up, and then of course the Xbox was like, probably one of my first real consoles, and something, the console that I got a lot of play out of. I definitely enjoyed it, and it was a lot of fun. Now, Xbox is doing a little bit of a tell-all, saying that this is an article from Nathan Ingram. Microsoft tried to buy Nintendo, but got laughed out of the room. Saying that somehow it's been 2 decades since the unveiling of the original Xbox at CES 2001, and to commemorate the launch, Bloomberg published an in-depth oral history of the console and how it came to be. It's a fascinating read, which again we'll have in the show notes if you want to check that out yourself, but one particular passage stands out. Details on how Microsoft's efforts to secure games for the brand new console. And while the company implored third-party developers to work with Xbox, Microsoft also considered using its considerable financial might to buy developers. And one of those was probably the biggest acquisition you could do if you're looking to buy IP and video games and things like that. Let's just say it. Again, Microsoft tried to buy Nintendo, which is, the rest is history. I mean, obviously Nintendo did not sell to Microsoft, but Microsoft was not completely crazy when they went into this. Microsoft was laughed out of the room, says Kevin Bacchus, a director for third-party relations on the Xbox project, saying, quotes, "They just laughed their butts off," he said to Bloomberg. Like, imagine an hour of somebody just laughing at you. That was kind of how that's kind of how it went. I can imagine something like this just in the background for just like a full hour. Just laugh. Just laugh. I don't know what to tell you. So it did make some amount of sense, as the article points out. At the time, Nintendo was lagging behind Sony badly from a hardware perspective. This was before the Nintendo Wii. The Wii came out in when was the Wii? Nintendo Wii launch. I believe that was in 2004 or 2006. And then before that, they had the DS. Let's see. Nintendo. Yeah, 2004 was the DS. The 2006 was the Nintendo Wii, 2 of their more popular items. And we're talking the year 2000, years before they would have another hardware hit on their hands. So Microsoft, their pitch was essentially, saying that Microsoft had Nintendo in their building on January 2000 to work through the details of a joint venture, and we told them about the technical specs of the Xbox, saying that the pitch was that their hardware stunk, and compared to PlayStation, it did. So the idea was, listen, you're much better at the games portion of it with Mario and all that stuff. Why don't you let us take care of the hardware? But it didn't work out. And again, saying that they were essentially laughed at for a solid hour. And while this is certainly the most notable of Microsoft's failed acquisitions, there were others, including EA, was the first company that Microsoft reached out to, and, well, the software giant essentially said, no thanks, and that was it. Microsoft also reached out to Square, who is now Square Enix, and Midway, who are developers of Mortal Kombat. Now, one acquisition that did go through, and for those of you who are fans of the original Xbox, you may know this very well, Bungie was an acquisition that did go well, and Halo Combat Evolved released alongside the Xbox console, and I gotta say, Halo and Combat Evolved really allowed Xbox to gain immediate legitimacy, as the article points out, as well as give it a significant chunk of the gaming market despite the dominance by Sony and Nintendo. Because really, when you think about it, Microsoft going into this, now we think of them as a, maybe even now, not the biggest player because, Nintendo and Sony have been doing so well. But Microsoft is definitely a player in the console market. Before this, no, Microsoft really didn't do hardware. They made the Windows operating system. No one really said that they could do hardware, and they came out swinging. It seems like a good read, and you should definitely check it out. Again, that was by Bloomberg, and you can find more of it in the show notes. But I found that very, very fascinating to see that happen. Now, there's that story. We have maybe time for two more, and let's, some leaks are coming out from CES, and I just can't help myself. I love the new tech stuff that's happening. If you're seeing the video portion here, for those of you who can't, imagine your car's dashboard, left to right, the entire length of it, and it's essentially a 56-inch hyperscreen for Mercedes-Benz and their EQS cars. This whole thing is going to be an entertainment system. And I've talked about why they've been doing this. And I talked about it last year. So this whole thing is because car companies, they see an uncertain future. Obviously, it's not just about electric cars. It's not just about gas cars and things like that. It's about automation and automated driving. It's going to get here. It's just a matter of how hard is it and how long is it going to take. But car companies want to position themselves so that, hey, they're in there. And they know that the future of revenue when it comes to cars is not even going to be car ownership. Why would you own a car when you can have access to a car at any point? That's the future that Uber and Lyft have showed us. That, you don't need to have a car sitting uselessly in your driveway for 16, 18, 20 hours a day when you have access to a car within minutes at any point. There's always exceptions, and there will always be people who prefer to own their own cars, but the future of car ownership is in question. So car companies see this and they go, well, what is our revenue? What do we see? And again, if you're watching the video portion, you can see this is the future of Mercedes revenue. It's going to be automated cars that within the car itself, they are going to be content providers. Much like movie theaters, much like restaurants, much like anywhere else, the atmosphere matters. The infotainment matters. Being able to sell content and sell, because people aren't going to give over for $30, $40, $50, $60,000 in one big chunk. They're going to have to find a revenue stream that pulls that value out of the consumer over time. And man, these panels look amazing. So the panel uses OLED covered by anti-reflective Gorilla Glass and auto-adjusts brightness thanks to camera and light sensor. It should not distract you at night like some in-car displays. It should be responsive too, with an 8-core CPU and 24 gigs of RAM, which 24, not bad. Not great, not bad. Hyperscreen's interface may be important, maybe just as important as the sheer size. And by the way, if you're watching, we're going to go ahead and play the video here of this thing. Pretty incredible. Now, they said that the interface may be just as important. Mercedes is focusing heavily on AI that surfaces and suggests features when you need them. It'll offer to call a contact if you talk to them on your drive home, will automatically lift the car based on your location, and will even remember your preferred message types based on outside temperatures. There you go. I'm sorry, massage types, not massage types, because it's a Mercedes after all. The controls may be easier to use than the earlier MBUX equipped cars. Mercedes is aiming for a 0-layer interface where common tasks are available right away. Navigation is always at the center of the screen, for example. So even though they're giving you more options to do more things, they're hoping that by putting these things together, that they can... and by doing it intelligently, even though it's going to be a bigger screen, a 56-inch OLED screen, they're hoping it's even less distracting because they can offer to do things automatically and put the information where it needs to be immediately. So, obviously, they said that they're still shy on exactly when you can see these in cars. However, the Hyperscreen teaser offers a clue as to what Mercedes has planned. This really will be an S-Class for the electric car era, including spare no-expense cabin tech. So, yeah, it's a 56-inch screen that hopes to completely redesign the user interface of a car. And yeah, this should not be a surprise. The cabin in a car is just rife for entertainment. Hopefully for the passengers, and especially as these things get to be more self-driving. You know, if you're taking this thing on the highway and it's driving itself for 4 hours, yeah, you need something to do. And I don't think it will offer movies immediately, but one day it just might. So there you go. An infotainment playground. All right, one last, and let's go ahead and do another item. Speaking of screens and speaking of amazing screen sizes, Samsung. Check this one out. Let's see, and not this one. Yeah, it looks like there's not a video here, and obviously this is stuff that we'll cover and hopefully get them on the show to talk about this with CES 2021. Samsung has pursued another display technology, micro LED. It relies on tiny self-emitting LEDs to deliver the same deep black levels and extreme contrast you get from OLEDs, but without the limited brightness and burn-in potential. So after seeing the Wall last year, which was a 110-inch model, yeah, now they have an 88 and a 99-inch model. And now they have a new one with the micro LED. And by the way, this micro LED TV, which again comes in 88 inches, can be installed by yourself. So they said that they're taking a familiar approach. The thin panels are pre-assembled so that all you need to do is lift the screen out of the box using the bundled installation handles and mount it on your wall. In the interview above, Samsung executives Mike Kadish and Dan Shinazi tell us that you'll definitely need a few extra hands to deal with such a large screen. These TVs are meant to be wall mounted, but you can also purchase a stand separately if you prefer to use a console table. Even though they're pre-configured, there's potential for micro LED panels to slip out of alignment over time, but you should be able to readjust them with a screwdriver. So there you go. Yeah, these amazing televisions. Let's see. There's no price on it, but I'm betting yeah, there's going to be a price somewhere in the $30,000 range, if not $30,000 to $40,000 for these things. Price, with products like these, they're not expecting to sell 1 million of them. They're expecting to sell, 100 of them, if that. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. More CES, more tech news, more, hopefully less craziness tomorrow here on the program. And we look forward to seeing you here, same time, same place, Computer America, 4 p.m. through 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Iron, for checking us out. And hey, we'll be back before you know it. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye.